We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Fractured Foundations. The acrid smell of burnt toast pierced through Ethan Hayes' nostrils as he stood in his kitchen, his calloused hands gripping the marble counter. At 42, the construction foreman had built his life on precision and order, qualities that had served him well in both his professional and personal life. Until now. Delilah, he called out, his deep voice echoing through their suburban Denver home. No response. The silence that followed felt heavier than the steel beams he managed at work. The kitchen, usually immaculate with its gleaming appliances and organized drawers, now bore witness to his wife's increasing carelessness. A half-empty wine glass by the sink, art supplies scattered across the breakfast bar, and that damn burnt toast smoking in the toaster. Ethan's mind drifted to 15 years ago, when he first met Delilah in that small Wyoming town. He'd been working on a local renovation project, and she was the California art student who'd blown into town like a fresh breeze. All wild ideas and untamed creativity. Her laugh had filled every room she entered, and her fiery spirit had awakened something in him he didn't know existed. "Mom's not here," Ava announced, entering the kitchen. At 14, their eldest daughter was already showing signs of his practical nature, her school uniform pressed and neat, her backpack organized. She said she had an early meeting at her studio. Ethan's jaw clenched. Another early meeting? The third this week. "Dad, can you sign my permission slip?" Liam, their 12-year-old soccer star, bounded into the kitchen, full of energy despite the early hour. "Coach says I might make team captain this season." "That's great, buddy." Ethan forced a smile, signing the paper while trying to ignore the gnawing feeling in his gut. The private school fees for 3 kids weren't cheap, and Delilah's art sales had become increasingly sporadic. 8-year-old Chloe appeared last, her clothes splattered with paint like her mother's usually were. "Daddy, Mommy promised to help with my art project, but she wasn't here this morning." "I'll help you tonight, princess," Ethan promised, though the words tasted bitter in his mouth. Delilah's absences were becoming more noticeable to everyone. After getting the kids off to school, Ethan decided to skip work. Something felt off, and his instincts, honed by years of identifying structural weaknesses in buildings, were screaming at him. He headed to the garage, ostensibly to look for his old construction hammer. The space was cluttered with Delilah's art supplies and his tools, a metaphor for their merged lives that now seemed to be untangling. As he moved aside a canvas, a receipt fluttered to the ground. "Marcus Thorne," he read aloud, his eyes narrowing at the restaurant name, Le Petit Jardin, and the $400 wine charge. His stomach churned as he recognized the date, last Thursday, when Delilah had claimed to be at an art gallery opening. The discovery sparked something primal in him. He began searching the garage, then moved to their bedroom. In Delilah's closet, behind a stack of paint-stained smocks, he found a second phone. The messages made his blood run cold. "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about your touch. Marcus, when can I see you again? E's working late all week. Delilah, meet me at our usual spot. Wear that red dress. Marcus." The explicit photos that followed turned his world red. Ethan Hayes, the man who'd built his reputation on being level-headed and fair, felt something snap inside him. The phone creaked under his grip. When Delilah finally came home that evening, the confrontation was inevitable. "Where were you last night?" he asked, his voice deceptively calm as she walked through the door. "At the studio, working on my new series," she replied, not meeting his eyes. The scent of expensive perfume, not her usual brand, clung to her clothes. "Funny thing about that," Ethan said, placing the receipt on the kitchen counter. "I didn't know your studio moved to Le Petit Jardin." Delilah froze, her hand halfway to her wine glass. "I can explain. Can you explain this too?" He placed the phone next to the receipt. "Or the photos? Or why you're telling this Marcus character that I'm working late when I've been home every night this week? You're going through my things now?" Delilah's voice rose, attempting to flip the script. "This is exactly why I needed space. You're controlling, suffocating. Ethan's laugh was harsh. "I've given you everything. The studio, the freedom to pursue your art, private schools for the kids, everything except understanding. Delilah shot back. You've never understood my artistic spirit, my need for passion. Passion? Ethan's voice dropped dangerously low. Is that what you call betraying your family? You wouldn't understand, she spat, turning away. You're too practical, too rigid. Marcus understands. Marcus understands what? How to wine and dine married women. How to destroy families. Don't you dare judge him. Delilah whirled back, her eyes flashing. He sees me for who I really am, not just as a wife and mother. The words hung between them like poison. Ethan felt something crystallize inside him, a cold, hard determination. Go to bed, he said quietly. We'll discuss this tomorrow. But Delilah had already stormed off, the bedroom door slamming behind her. Ethan remained in the kitchen, his mind working with the same precision he applied to his construction projects. He'd been betrayed, humiliated, but he wasn't broken. Not yet. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in months. Dale? It's Ethan. Remember that favor you owe me? I need your help. Chapter 2. Unearthing the Truth. Dale Wilson's office reflected its owner's eccentric nature. Conspiracy theory posters competed for wall space with professional investigator certificates, and high-tech surveillance equipment sat next to vintage detective novels. The private investigator himself, a lanky man with piercing eyes and a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, studied the evidence Ethan had brought with growing concern. This is bad, Dale muttered, scrolling through the messages on the hidden phone. Real bad. I need to know everything, Ethan said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Every detail, every meeting, every lie. Dale leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his disheveled hair. You sure about this? Sometimes ignorance is. Don't. Ethan cut him off. I need the truth. All of it. All right, Dale sighed, reaching for his laptop. Let's start with this Marcus Thorne character. Over the next hour, they pieced together a profile that made Ethan's blood boil. Marcus Thorne, successful architect, known playboy, with a history of affairs with married women. His social media showed him at high-end events, always with a different woman on his arm. He's got a pattern, Dale explained, pulling up various photos. Targets wealthy, married women, usually artistic types. Wines and dines them. Makes them feel special, then moves on once he's bored. How long? Ethan's question was barely audible. Based on the phone records I pulled, Dale hesitated. At least a year. The revelation hit Ethan like a physical blow. A year. While he'd been working overtime to maintain their lifestyle. While he'd been attending school plays and soccer games alone because Delilah was too busy. There's more, Dale said quietly. I did some digging in her studio activities. The place she claims to work late? She hasn't rented it in months. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. Where has she been going? Various hotels. Dale pulled up a series of credit card statements. Always paid for by Marcus Thorne. The betrayal felt like acid in his veins. But something else caught his attention, a pattern in the dates. These hotel stays, he pointed to specific charges. Some of them are from years ago, before Marcus. Dale nodded grimly. I noticed that too. Want me to dig deeper? Everything, Ethan commanded. I want to know lie, betrayal. While Dale worked his investigative magic, Ethan decided to do some digging of his own. He drove to Delilah's studio, using the spare key she'd given him years ago. The space was dusty and used, but in a corner, hidden behind blank canvases, he found them. 3 leather-bound diaries. The entries made him physically ill. Marcus makes me feel alive again. Not like Ethan, always so concerned with practicality and responsibility. Marcus understands passion, understands art. Met with James today. Seeing him brought back memories of that weekend in Vegas, when Ethan was at his friend's wedding. Sometimes I wonder if Liam, another night with Marcus. He wants me to leave Ethan, start fresh. Maybe he's right. This suburban life is suffocating me. The implications hit him like sledgehammer blows. The dates, the names, the possibilities. He needed to know for sure. Back at Dale's office, his friend had more revelations. I found something interesting about your kid's medical records, Dale said carefully. Tell me. There are discrepancies in the blood types. Based on you and Delilah's medical records, the combinations don't quite match. Ethan felt the room spin. DNA testing. I want it done. Immediately. Are you sure? This could change everything. Everything's already changed. Ethan's voice was ice. I need to know what else she's taken from me. The next few days passed in a blur of surveillance reports and DNA tests. Ethan maintained a facade of normalcy at home, watching Delilah with new eyes. Every kiss goodbye, casual touch, all lies. When the DNA results arrived, Dale was there to witness Ethan's world implode. None of them, Ethan whispered, staring at the results. None of them are mine. I'm so sorry. Don't be. Ethan cut him off, a dangerous calm settling over him. This changes everything. That evening, when Delilah returned home, Ethan was waiting. The confrontation that followed would reshape both their lives forever. We need to talk, he said as she walked in, still wearing the red dress she'd worn for Marcus. Can it wait? I'm tired. Sit down. His tone made her freeze. On the table between them, he laid out everything: the credit card receipts, the hotel records, the text messages, and finally, the diaries. How dare you go through my private things? Delilah exploded, reaching for the diaries. Ethan caught her wrist. How dare I? How dare you? 15 years, Delilah. 15 years of lies. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. He released her wrist with disgust. I understand that while I was building us a life, you were destroying it. I understand that while I was working overtime to pay for private schools, you were sleeping with other men. It wasn't like that. Then tell me, Delilah. He leaned forward, his voice deadly quiet. Tell me about James. Tell me about Marcus. Tell me about our children who aren't mine. The color drained from her face. The DNA tests. You didn't. I did. And now I know everything. Lie, betrayal, moment you made a fool of me. Delilah's facade cracked. What do you want from me? An apology? Fine, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I couldn't be satisfied with your boring, predictable life. I'm sorry I needed more than construction sites and soccer games. Each word was another nail in the coffin of their marriage, but Ethan remained eerily calm. No, Delilah, I don't want your apologies. I want you to understand what's coming next. What's that supposed to mean? It means, he stood, towering over her, that you're about to learn exactly what happens when you betray someone like me. As he walked away, leaving her trembling in the kitchen, Ethan felt a cold clarity settle over him. The naive, trusting man he'd been was dead. In his place stood someone harder, someone who would show no mercy to those who had betrayed him. Chapter 3. The Gathering Storm. The revelation of Delilah's betrayal transformed Ethan Hayes. The change wasn't immediately visible. He still went to work, still maintained his routines, but inside, something fundamental had shifted. The warm, practical family man was gone, replaced by someone calculating and cold. You've changed, Dale observed one evening, watching Ethan methodically sort through financial records in his office. The old Ethan would have confronted Delilah immediately about the kids. The old Ethan was a fool, he replied without looking up. Tell me what you found on Marcus Thorne's development project. Dale pulled out a thick file. It's interesting. He's leveraged everything on this luxury apartment complex. Multiple loans, high interest rates. If it fails, he fails, Ethan finished, a predatory smile playing at his lips. And the city inspection is next week. Yeah, but Dale hesitated. What are you planning? Ethan finally looked up, his eyes hard. Justice, Dale. Or something close to it. The next day, Ethan visited his old friend Tom Chun, now a prominent real estate lawyer. Over lunch, Tom revealed crucial information about Marcus's project. The whole thing's built on shortcuts, Tom explained, sliding over some documents. Substandard materials, ignored safety protocols. If someone were to tip off the city inspectors, someone like me? Ethan's question was rhetorical. I didn't say that, Tom replied carefully. But hypothetically, the right information in the right hands could bring the whole thing down. Meanwhile, Delilah was getting nervous. Ethan's calm facade unnerved her more than any anger would have. She tried to reach out to Marcus for comfort. He knows everything, she told Marcus over the phone, unaware that Dale had tapped the line. About us, about the kids, but he's just acting normal. It's terrifying. Relax, baby. Marcus's smooth voice oozed confidence. What can he do? He's just a construction worker. Once the divorce is final, we'll be together. Their confidence would prove to be their undoing. While they planned their future, Ethan was systematically dismantling it. He started with discreet inquiries about Delilah's art business. Her online gallery, once successful, had some interesting financial irregularities. A friend in the FBI's white-collar crime division found evidence of money laundering. She's been selling forgeries, Agent Sarah Martinez explained, showing Ethan the documentation. And the money trail leads to some very dangerous people. Keep building the case, Ethan instructed. But don't move yet. The pieces were falling into place. Ethan's transformation continued. He joined a gym, started dressing better, cultivated new connections. The changes didn't go unnoticed. Dad's different, Ava commented to her siblings one evening. He seems stronger. Mom's scared of him, Liam added. I saw her jump when he came into the kitchen yesterday. Chloe, just hug her art supplies closer. I miss how things used to be. The children's words might once have softened Ethan's heart, but not anymore. When Delilah's lawyer sent divorce papers demanding alimony and full custody, he simply smiled. Let her think she's winning, he told his lawyer, Michael Ross. For now, she's playing hardball, Michael warned. Claims you're emotionally abusive, controlling. Good. Ethan's response surprised him. Let her dig her grave deeper. While his divorce proceedings simmered, Ethan focused on gathering more intelligence. Dale's investigation had uncovered a treasure trove of damaging information about both Delilah and Marcus. The affair was just the tip of the iceberg. Look at these bank transfers. Dale pointed to his computer screen during one of their evening meetings. Delilah's been moving money around, lots of it. And these aren't sales? The numbers don't add up. Ethan leaned forward, studying the transactions. Money laundering? Looks like it. She's been selling original artwork online at inflated prices. Same pieces, different names, different buyers. Classic washing scheme. Who's behind it? Dale shifted uncomfortably. Local gang connections. Serious people. She's in deep. This information added another layer to Ethan's strategy. He wasn't just dealing with infidelity anymore. This was criminal territory. At home, the tension was becoming unbearable. Delilah attempted to maintain a facade of normalcy around the children, but her nervousness showed in small ways. Dropped plates, forgotten appointments, startled jumps when Ethan entered a room. One evening, she attempted to reconcile. Ethan, she approached him in his home office. Can we talk? About the children? He looked up from his paperwork, his face unreadable. What about them? They're still our children, regardless of biology. They love you. You're the only father they've known. Interesting choice of words. Ethan's voice was cold. Tell me, did you think about that when you were writing in your diary about their real fathers? When you were planning your life with Marcus? Please, she whispered. We can work something out. For their sake. Like what, Delilah? Joint custody of children you lied about for years? Alimony from the man you betrayed? What exactly do you think you deserve? Her composure cracked. Why are you being so cruel? This isn't like you. You're right. He stood slowly. The man you knew, the one you took advantage of? He's gone. You killed him with lie, betrayal, nights spent in another man's bed. I'll fight you, she threatened, backing away. I'll take everything. Try. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Please try. As Delilah fled the room, Ethan returned to his work. The DNA test results lay on his desk alongside financial records, surveillance photos, and Dale's reports. Each piece of evidence was a weapon in his arsenal, waiting to be deployed at the perfect moment. The next morning, he made a crucial phone call to his friend at the city inspector's office. Jack, it's Ethan Hayes. Remember that favor you owe me from the Wilson Project? I need to talk to you about Marcus Thorne's development. The wheels were in motion. Ethan Hayes, once a devoted family man, had transformed into something else entirely. A man focused solely on calculated revenge. The storm he was gathering would soon break, and when it did, no one who had betrayed him would be spared. As Act 1 drew to a close, Ethan sat in his office, reviewing his plans. The DNA test results were securely filed, the evidence of Delilah's crimes carefully documented, and Marcus's vulnerability identified. The foundation was laid for what would come next. Dale watched his friend's transformation with a mixture of awe and concern. The warm, forgiving man he'd known for decades had become someone else. Someone harder, colder, more dangerous. But he knew better than to try to talk Ethan out of his path. Some betrayals cut too deep for forgiveness. The stage was set. Ethan Hayes had emerged from the ashes of his destroyed marriage as someone new. Someone who would show his betrayers exactly what happens when you underestimate a seemingly simple construction foreman. The war was about to begin, and Ethan was armed with far more than just the truth. Chapter 4. The Architect's Fall. Marcus Thorne stood at the window of his penthouse office, admiring the Denver skyline he'd helped shape. His latest project, the Aurora Heights luxury apartment complex, would be his crowning achievement, assuming it passed next week's inspection. He straightened his Italian silk tie, a gift from Delilah, and smiled at the thought of her. His phone buzzed. Speaking of Delilah, Marcus, her voice was strained. "We need to talk." "Ethan knows." "Knows what exactly?" Marcus kept his voice level, though his grip tightened on the phone. "Everything. The affair, the hotels, the messages. He has proof." Marcus fought down a flicker of concern. "Relax, darling. He's just a construction worker. What's the worst he could do?" The answer to that question arrived at 8 a.m. the following Monday, in the form of Jack Morrison, chief building inspector for the city of Denver, accompanied by a team of inspectors and, unexpectedly, several news crews. "Good morning, Mr. Thorne." Jack's professional smile didn't reach his eyes. "We're here for a complete structural and safety inspection of the Aurora Heights development." Marcus maintained his composure. "Of course, though I wasn't aware the media would be present." "Public interest project," Jack replied. "Shall we begin with the foundation?" The inspection was brutal. Jack's team discovered substandard materials in the foundation, inadequate fire safety measures, and electrical work that violated multiple building codes. Each violation was meticulously documented, with news cameras capturing everything. "Care to comment on these violations, Mr. Thorne?" A reporter thrust a microphone in his face. "These are minor discrepancies." Marcus attempted damage control. "Nothing that can't be easily addressed." "Minor?" Jack interrupted. "Mr. Thorne, your building's support structure is critically compromised. This entire project is a disaster waiting to happen." The story aired on evening news across Colorado. By morning, Marcus's phone was ringing nonstop. Investors pulling out, banks calling in loans, clients canceling contracts. In his office, Ethan watched the coverage with Dale, his face impassive. "That's going to cost him millions," Dale observed. "It's a start," Ethan replied. "Call our friend at the FBI." It's time they looked into Marcus's financial records. The investigation revealed years of fraudulent practices, bribes, kickbacks, falsified documents. Marcus's empire began crumbling faster than one of his badly built buildings. When Delilah called him in panic, Marcus was 3 drinks into his imported scotch. "They're freezing my accounts," he slurred. "The banks, the investors. Everything's gone. Help me," Delilah pleaded. "Ethan's gathering evidence about my art dealings. I need money to fight him." Marcus laughed bitterly. "Money? I'm ruined, Delilah. Whatever game your husband's playing, he's winning. He's not playing a game." Delilah's voice shook. "He's destroying us." A week later, Marcus sat in his emptying office, signing bankruptcy papers. His reputation was destroyed, his wealth gone. As he watched movers carrying out his designer furniture, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Enjoy poverty. It's only the beginning." Chapter 5. The Serpent's Squeeze. Delilah Hayes paced her art studio, phone pressed to her ear, listening to her lawyer's increasingly dire warnings. "Mrs. Hayes, these allegations about fraudulent art sales are serious. The FBI is involved now. You need to tell me everything." "It's not what you think," Delilah insisted, though her hands shook as she looked at the paintings around her. Copies she'd sold as originals, pieces used to launder money for people she should never have gotten involved with. "Your husband's legal team has provided extensive documentation," her lawyer continued. "Bank records, online transactions, communications with certain individuals. He can't prove anything, Delilah snapped. But even as she said it, she noticed two men in suits approaching her studio. Federal agents, badges already out. Mrs. Hayes? We need to ask you some questions about your art business. The questioning lasted hours. They knew everything. The fake paintings, the money laundering, the connections to local criminals. When they finally left, Delilah's phone was ringing again. This time, it was Marcus. Did they visit you too? She asked without preamble. It's over, Delilah. Marcus's voice was hollow. I'm facing criminal charges. The DA's office has evidence going back years. Someone's been building a case against us both. Ethan, Delilah whispered. He's been planning this. Her world continued to crumble. The local news ran stories about her fraudulent art scheme. Former clients came forward, demanding refunds and pressing charges. Her reputation in the art community, built over 15 years, vanished overnight. Even her closest friends began distancing themselves. At her favorite cafe, the owner who'd once proudly displayed her work now asked her to leave. Bad for business, he muttered, not meeting her eyes. Desperate, she tried reaching out to her other lovers, James, the businessman she'd met in Vegas, Michael, the gallery owner from last year. But Ethan had gotten to them first. James's wife answered his phone. Don't ever call this number again. You home-wrecking witch. Michael's response was a terse text, stay away from me. Your husband has proof of everything. In her growing isolation, Delilah made one last attempt to salvage something from the wreckage. She asked Ethan to meet her at a public park. He arrived precisely on time, accompanied by his lawyer. The man she dismissed as boring and predictable now radiated a cold authority that made her shiver. Please, she began. We can work something out. The children aren't mine. Ethan cut her off. Or did you forget that detail? They love you. Like you loved me? His voice could have frozen fire. Let's talk about what you actually want, Delilah. Money? Status? The house. You want to escape the consequences of your actions. He leaned forward, eyes boring into hers. That's not going to happen. You've lied to me for 15 years. You've betrayed not just me, but those children. Now you'll experience exactly what that feels like. Are you threatening me? Threatening? He laughed, the sound devoid of warmth. No, Delilah. I'm promising you. By the time I'm done, you'll understand exactly what it feels like to lose everything. As if on cue, her phone buzzed. Another client demanding a refund, threatening legal action. Delilah felt the walls closing in. The man before her wasn't the predictable, reliable husband she'd taken for granted. This was someone else entirely, someone capable of destroying everything she'd built. Chapter 6. Legal Warfare and the Final Blow. The Denver County Courthouse buzzed with anticipation. The Hayes divorce case had become local legend, with rumors of art fraud, paternity scandals, and criminal connections drawing spectators and reporters alike. Delilah's lawyer attempted to paint Ethan as controlling and vindictive. My client merely sought artistic freedom from an oppressive marriage. Artistic freedom? Ethan's lawyer interrupted, placing documents before the judge. Is that what we're calling criminal fraud now? Your Honor, I present evidence of Mrs. Hayes's systematic art forgery scheme. The evidence was devastating. Bank records, witness statements, documented connections to criminal organizations. Each revelation struck another blow to Delilah's credibility. Furthermore, Ethan's lawyer continued, DNA evidence conclusively proves that Mr. Hayes is not the biological father of any of the children. Mrs. Hayes committed paternity fraud while engaging in multiple extramarital affairs. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Delilah sank lower in her seat as her own lawyer struggled to mount any defense. Your Honor, her lawyer attempted. Regardless of paternity, Mr. Hayes has been these children's father figure. A role he was tricked into, Ethan's lawyer countered. Through deliberate, calculated deception, the judge's ruling was decisive. No alimony, no custody rights, no claims to Ethan's assets or future earnings. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed them both. Mrs. Hayes, how do you respond to allegations of art fraud? Mr. Hayes, did you know about your wife's criminal connections? Mrs. Hayes, What about the paternity revelations? Delilah fled to her car, but the nightmare wasn't over. Her phone was flooded with messages from angry clients, former friends, and art galleries canceling exhibitions. That evening, local news stations ran the full story, complete with details of her affairs, fraudulent art sales, and criminal connections. Social media exploded with condemnation. The woman who had once been a respected artist and socialite became a pariah overnight. Desperate, she tried one last move. Through her lawyer, she offered Ethan everything: the house, her remaining assets, full control of all decisions regarding the children. His response came via text. "You still don't understand. I don't want anything from you. I want you to have nothing." The final blow came when Ethan's legal team released a comprehensive public statement detailing each of her affairs, complete with dates, locations, and evidence. The statement included proof of her art fraud scheme, money laundering operations, and the paternity deception. The story went viral. National news picked it up. Delilah Hayes became the face of infidelity and fraud. Her own family cut ties. Art galleries across the country blacklisted her. Former clients filed lawsuits. In his office, Ethan watched the coverage with Dale. "Think you went too far?" Dale asked, not judging, merely curious. Ethan's response was cold. "She spent 15 years destroying everything I believed in. Everything I built. Now she knows exactly how that feels." And Marcus? Living in a one-room apartment, working as a junior draftsman at a small firm in Nebraska, Ethan's satisfaction was evident. Amazing how quickly people fall when their foundations are destroyed. The revenge Ethan had orchestrated was complete. He had dismantled their lives with the same precision they'd used to destroy his trust. Marcus Thorne, the wealthy architect, was now a disgraced former professional. Delilah Hayes, the respected artist, was a social outcast facing criminal charges. But most importantly, they understood what he'd known from the moment he discovered their betrayal: that actions have consequences, and some betrayals can never be forgiven. Chapter 7. The Aftermath and Reflections. The dust had settled on Ethan Hayes' revenge, but the man who emerged bore little resemblance to the trusting husband who discovered his wife's betrayal months ago. He sat in his new office, reviewing the final paperwork from his divorce settlement, his face an impassive mask. "You sure about this?" Dale asked, gesturing to the trust fund documents on the desk. "Setting up accounts for kids that aren't yours? Those children are innocent." Ethan's voice was cold. Unlike their mother, the trust funds were substantial, one for each child, funded by the sale of the family home and his personal savings. It was a calculated move, like everything else Ethan did now. Speaking of their mother, Dale pulled up a news article on his tablet. "Delilah's art fraud case goes to trial next month." Not my concern anymore. Dale studied his friend. The transformation in Ethan was profound. His physique had hardened from regular gym sessions. His demeanor had shifted from approachable to intimidating, and his business decisions had become ruthlessly efficient. "The kids asked about you," Dale mentioned carefully. "Ava especially." A flicker of something passed across Ethan's face. "They have their biological fathers to worry about now. Those DNA results went public, remember?" "Yeah, about that." Dale shifted uncomfortably. James Thompson's wife filed for divorce after finding out about Liam. Michael Parker's gallery went bankrupt when his connection to Chloe came out. And Ava's father, well, he's not exactly father material. "That's why the trust funds exist," Ethan replied. "I destroy those who betray me, Dale. But I don't punish innocent children for their parents' sins." The phone rang. Ethan's therapist, Dr. Sarah Chun, confirming their session. He'd started therapy not out of guilt or remorse, but as another tool to hone himself. "You're handling your emotions with remarkable control," Dr. Chun noted during their session. "Perhaps too much control?" "Control is what separates revenge from mere reaction," Ethan responded. "I didn't want to just hurt them. I wanted to destroy them completely. And I succeeded. At what cost to yourself?" "Cost?" Ethan's laugh held no warmth. "Doctor, I gained far more than I lost. I shed weakness, naivety, trust in the wrong people. What I gained was power, control, and a clear understanding of human nature." Dr. Chun made notes. "And the children? Will be financially secure without having to depend on their worthless mother," or they're equally worthless fathers. That's more than most abandoned children get. After therapy, Ethan drove to a small carpentry workshop he'd purchased. Woodworking had always been his escape, but now he approached it with the same precision he'd applied to his revenge. Each cut exact, each joint perfect. Dale visited him there one evening, bringing news about Marcus Thorne. "He's working as a junior draftsman in Nebraska," Dale reported. "Barely making ends meet. His reputation's so bad, he can't even get interviews in major cities anymore." Ethan continued sanding a table leg, his strokes precise and controlled. And Delilah? Living with her sister in Phoenix. The art world's completely blacklisted her. She tried selling under a pseudonym, but word got out. She's working as a waitress now. Good? The single word carried the weight of satisfied vengeance. That night, Ethan walked through his new house, smaller than his old one, but entirely his. No traces of betrayal, no memories of lies. He'd chosen each piece of furniture himself, built some of them with his own hands. His phone buzzed with a text from Ava. "I know you're not my real father, but can we talk?" Ethan stared at the message for a long moment before replying. "The trust fund is yours when you turn 21. Use it wisely." It wasn't cruel. It was honest. He'd provided for their future, but wouldn't play pretend father anymore. The man who'd loved them as his own was gone, replaced by someone who understood the price of misplaced trust. Chapter 8. New Beginnings and Forgiveness. 6 months after the divorce, Ethan Hayes sat in a board meeting of his newly formed construction company, Hayes Construction Solutions. The other board members watched nervously as he dissected a proposed contract. "These terms are unacceptable," he stated flatly. "Revise them or we walk." The company had grown rapidly, built on Ethan's reputation for uncompromising standards and ruthless efficiency. Former colleagues who'd once seen him as just another foreman now respected and feared him in equal measure. "Your company's expansion is impressive," remarked Thomas Chun, his lawyer and occasional golf partner. 3 major projects in the first year alone. "People respect strength," Ethan replied, adjusting his custom-made suit. "They respect someone who won't be taken advantage of." His phone buzzed, another message from Delilah's lawyer. She was trying to appeal the divorce settlement. "Again, tell her to stop wasting what little money she has left," Ethan instructed his lawyer. "The judgment is final." He'd heard through Dale that she'd attempted to write a book about their marriage, painting herself as the victim. 3 publishers had already rejected it, fearing lawsuits. After work, Ethan headed to his regular gym session. Physical training had become another form of control, pushing his body to its limits, transforming himself inside and out. "Looking solid, Mr. Hayes," his trainer commented. "That new diet plan's working well." Ethan merely nodded, focusing on his reps. He'd learned to tune out small talk, to focus on what mattered: results, control, power. Later that week, he attended a charity gala, not out of any particular philanthropic spirit, but because it was good for business. His entrance caused a stir. The story of his revenge against his unfaithful wife and her lover had become something of a local legend. "Mr. Hayes," a potential client approached him. "I heard about how you handled the situation with your ex-wife." "Impressive. I believe in consequences," Ethan replied smoothly. "Actions should have appropriate repercussions." The man nodded eagerly. "We should discuss some projects. My company could use someone with your determination." Ethan's network grew, built not on friendship or trust, but on respect and a healthy dose of fear. His reputation preceded him. A man who'd systematically destroyed those who betrayed him, then built an empire from the ashes. Dale remained his only true confidant, the only one who'd seen both versions of Ethan Hayes. "You've changed," Dale observed during one of their regular meetings. "I've evolved," Ethan corrected. "Changed implies I'm a different person. I'm the same man, just without the weaknesses that allowed others to take advantage of me." And the forgiveness the therapist talks about. Forgiveness? Ethan's laugh was sharp. "I've forgiven myself for being naive enough to trust the wrong people. That's all the forgiveness necessary." Chapter 9. The Final Acceptance. Years passed, and Ethan Hayes' transformation became complete. His construction company dominated the Denver market, known for excellence in execution and uncompromising standards. He'd moved into a penthouse apartment, The small house from his recovery period sold for a profit. News occasionally reached him about his past life. Delilah had attempted to restart her art career in Phoenix, only to have galleries close their doors at the mention of her name. Marcus Thorne had tried to rebuild in Nebraska, but remained trapped in entry-level positions, his reputation permanently tainted. The children had grown. Ava was in college, using her trust fund wisely. Liam had earned a soccer scholarship. Chloe was showing promise as an artist, though she painted under her biological father's surname now. One morning, Ethan received an unexpected visitor in his office, James Thompson, Liam's biological father. "I need help," James began, desperation evident in his voice. "After the DNA results went public, I lost everything. My wife, my business, and—" Ethan's voice could have frozen flame. "You destroyed us all," James continued. "But you also set up those trust funds for the kids. You're not completely heartless. You're mistaking practicality for mercy," Ethan replied. "The trust funds ensure those children don't pay for their parents' mistakes. That's all. Please," James pleaded. "Just a small investment in my new business venture." "No." Ethan's response was final. "You made your choices 15 years ago when you slept with my wife. Live with the consequences." After James left, Ethan stood at his office window, looking out over the city he'd helped rebuild. His phone buzzed with a message from Dale. Delilah had tried to contact him again. "Still wants to apologize," Dale's message read. "Says she's changed." Ethan deleted the message without responding. He'd moved beyond apologies, beyond the need for closure or reconciliation. The man who'd cared about such things died the day he found that credit card receipt. A notification popped up, another major contract awarded to his company. This was his life now. Success built on strength, respect earned through power, peace achieved through control. He'd learned the truth about human nature, about trust and betrayal, about strength and weakness. The lesson had been brutal, but the education was thorough. The sun set over Denver, casting the city in shades of gold and shadow. Somewhere out there, his former wife served tables in Phoenix. Her lover drafted minor architectural plans in Nebraska. Their comfortable lives had crumbled to dust, while he'd built something stronger from the ashes of his old life. Ethan Hayes stood at the top of his self-made empire, not as a victim who'd gotten revenge, but as a man who'd transformed betrayal into triumph. He felt neither joy nor pain at their fate. They were simply irrelevant now, cautionary tales in his story of rebirth. The man who emerged from the crucible of betrayal wasn't broken or bitter. He was refined, hardened, purified of weakness. He'd faced the worst kind of betrayal and emerged victorious, not just through revenge, but through transformation. This was his final acceptance, not of forgiveness or reconciliation, but of his own evolution. The trusting husband died in that garage with a credit card receipt in his hand. The man who rose in his place was someone stronger, someone who would never again be vulnerable to betrayal. And that, Ethan knew, was the greatest victory of all. Epilogue. 10 years later. The Denver Business Journal's headline read, "Hayes Construction Solutions acquires major international contract. CEO Ethan Hayes expands empire to Europe." At 52, Ethan Hayes had transformed from a betrayed husband into one of Colorado's most powerful business figures. His company, once a small startup born from the ashes of his destroyed marriage, now dominated the construction industry across 3 states. Ethan sat in his penthouse office on the 30th floor of the Hayes Tower, his own building in downtown Denver. The decor spoke of power, handcrafted furniture he'd made himself during his darkest days, modern art pieces worth millions, and windows offering a commanding view of the city he'd helped reshape. Another acquisition offer from Morrison Global, his assistant reported, placing a folder on his desk. "Decline it," Ethan replied without looking up. "I don't sell to companies with questionable foundations." His voice, deeper with age, carried the same steel that had served him well during his revenge against Delilah and Marcus. The years had added silver to his temples, but his physique remained imposing, the result of 2 decades of disciplined workout routines. Dale Wilson, now Hayes Construction's head of security, entered the office. Though older, He retained his investigative instincts and unwavering loyalty to Ethan. "Got those reports you wanted," Dale said, settling into a chair. "Quite the update on our old friends." Ethan raised an eyebrow, a gesture that now made junior executives tremble. "Go on." Marcus Thorne finally quit architecture altogether. He's managing a small hardware store in Omaha. Still can't shake the reputation from the Aurora Heights disaster. Tried to apply for a planning permission job last month. Got rejected when they Googled his name. A decade later, the Aurora Heights scandal remained a cautionary tale in architectural circles. The site where Marcus's dream project had stood was now home to the Hayes Business Park, a gleaming complex of offices and retail spaces that generated millions in annual revenue for Ethan's company. And Delilah? Still in Phoenix. The art world never forgave her. She's managing a diner now. Ironically, it's the only place that would hire her after all the publicity. She tried to start a small art therapy business last year, but it failed when clients discovered her history. Ethan nodded, his face impassive. Their downfall wasn't personal anymore, just data points in his life's trajectory. "The kids?" he asked, though he kept detailed files on all three. "Doing well, actually. Your trust funds made sure of that." Dale pulled out his tablet. "Ava graduated from Yale Law School, top of her class. She's clerking for a federal judge in Washington. Liam played soccer professionally in Europe for a few years, then started a successful sports training academy. And Chloe. She's made quite a name for herself in the art world, though she uses her biological father's name." Good. The word carried no emotional weight. Ethan had maintained his distance, responding to their occasional messages with professional courtesy, but nothing more. The trust funds ensured they'd have opportunities, but he never pretended to be their father again. Dale hesitated before continuing. "Ava's getting married next month." She sent an invitation. Ethan opened his desk drawer, removing a sealed envelope containing a cashier's check. "Send this as a wedding gift." The usual note. The usual note was a template he'd developed years ago. Professionally worded congratulations, a reminder about wise financial management, and his signature. No pretense of familial bonds, no false warmth. "There's more," Dale added. "Remember James Thompson? Liam's biological father? The one who tried to get investment money 5 years ago? He died last week. Liver failure. The funeral's tomorrow in Colorado Springs." Ethan's expression didn't change. Another loose end tied up by time itself. The intercom buzzed. His current project manager needed approval for changes to a major development. Ethan returned to work, the past filed away like old blueprints. Later that evening, he attended a charity gala at the Denver Art Museum. The irony wasn't lost on him. The same social circle that had once embraced Delilah now courted his favor. He moved through the crowd with practiced ease, his presence commanding respect and fear in equal measure. "Mr. Hayes," a young artist approached him nervously. "I heard you're funding the new gallery wing. Would you consider? Submit your proposal through proper channels." He cut her off smoothly. A decade ago, he might have been kinder, might have listened to her pitch. But that man was gone. His phone buzzed, a message from Michael Ross, his longtime lawyer. "Delilah's trying to publish that book again. New publisher, same old lies. Want me to shut it down?" Ethan typed back, "Handle it." The response was immediate. "Already done." Sent them the usual documentation. They dropped her this morning. The systematic destruction of his ex-wife's life had evolved into routine maintenance, like servicing a machine. Each attempted resurrection of her career met the same fate: swift, decisive elimination. At midnight, Ethan returned to his penthouse apartment. The space reflected his transformation. No family photos, no mementos of his past life. Instead, the walls displayed architectural drawings of his successful projects, awards from the construction industry, and a few pieces of his own woodwork. His phone contained a missed call from Chloe. Unlike her siblings, she'd inherited her mother's artistic talent, but none of her moral failings. She'd become a respected artist in New York, her work commanding high prices. She occasionally sought his advice on business matters, maintaining a strictly professional relationship. He played her voicemail. "Hi, Mr. Hayes. I'm having my first major gallery show in Denver next month. I know we're not. Well, I'd appreciate your input on the contract terms." Your business acumen has always been helpful. Ethan made a note to have his lawyer review the contract. He'd never attended any of their major life events, graduations, championships, exhibitions, but he ensured they had the tools to succeed. It was his final victory over Delilah, raising her children better in absence than she had in presence. A text from Dale arrived. Remember what day it is? Of course he did. 20 years ago today, he'd found that credit card receipt in his garage. The day that ended his old life and birthed his new one. Ethan poured himself a glass of scotch and stood by his window. Below, Denver sparkled like scattered diamonds. His empire had risen from the rubble of betrayal, built on foundations of ruthlessness and unforgiving strength. He opened his safe, removing a small box. Inside lay the items that had started it all: the credit card receipt, printouts of text messages, the DNA test results. He kept them not out of sentiment, but as reminders of the price of trust. His phone rang again, a number he didn't recognize. He answered out of habit. "Mr. Hayes?" A familiar voice, aged by time and hardship. "It's Marcus." Marcus Thorne. Ethan remained silent, letting his former rival squirm. I'm dying. Cancer. I wanted to apologize before." "Goodbye, Marcus." Ethan hung up, blocking the number. Apologies meant nothing to him now. The next morning, his executive team gathered for their weekly meeting. They watched nervously as their CEO dissected proposals and strategies with his trademark. None of them knew his full story. It had become urban legend, whispered in corner offices and boardrooms. The European expansion, his CFO began cautiously. "Some board members have concerns about the aggressive timeline." "Then replace them," Ethan replied coldly. "I don't tolerate weakness in my company or my life." The lesson he'd learned 20 years ago had served him well in business. Trust was a liability. Mercy was weakness. Success belonged to those strong enough to seize it. After the meeting, he received another update from Dale. Delilah had attempted to contact Ava before her wedding, trying to reestablish a relationship with her daughter. Ava had declined, choosing instead to have her stepfather walk her down the aisle. "She's still trying to fix the past," Dale observed. "The past doesn't need fixing," Ethan replied. "It needs accepting. Everyone made their choices. Now they live with them." His revenge had evolved from active destruction to passive maintenance. He no longer needed to pursue their downfall. His success alone ensured they remained in the shadows of their past mistakes. That evening, as he worked late in his office, he received an email from Yale Law School. They were establishing a scholarship fund and sought his support. The irony made him smile. Ava had graduated from there, her education funded by the trust he'd established. He approved the donation, but with a condition: recipients must demonstrate not just academic excellence, but strong ethical principles. It was his way of ensuring his legacy extended beyond revenge, beyond the destruction of those who betrayed him. As midnight approached, Ethan reviewed the latest architectural plans for his new project, a massive urban renewal development that would reshape downtown Denver. The project would erase one of the last remaining buildings Marcus had designed before his fall. "Poetic justice," Dale commented, noting the location. "Justice has nothing to do with it," Ethan corrected. "It's simply business." But they both knew better. Each success, each expansion of his empire was another nail in the coffin of his old life, another victory over those who'd underestimated him. The years had taught him that revenge wasn't just about destruction, it was about transformation. He'd transformed betrayal into empire, pain into power, weakness into strength. The man who discovered his wife's infidelity died that day in the garage, but the man who emerged from those ashes had built something far greater than a mere marriage. Ethan Hayes stood at his window, watching his city grow dark. Somewhere out there, his ex-wife served late-night customers in a Phoenix diner. Her lover counted inventory in an Omaha hardware store. Their comfortable lives had crumbled to dust while he'd built monuments of steel and glass. But he felt no triumph, no satisfaction. Those emotions belonged to the past, to the man he'd been. Now, there was only the cold certainty of success, the unshakable knowledge that he'd not just survived betrayal, he'd conquered it. The night deepened. and Denver's lights twinkled below like stars fallen to earth. In his hand, he held the latest architectural plans, a new tower that would rise 50 stories above the city. Its shadow would fall across the site where he'd first discovered Delilah's betrayal, a fitting monument to his transformation. Time had proven his revenge more complete than he'd imagined. He hadn't just destroyed their lives, he'd rendered them irrelevant. Their names were footnotes in his story, cautionary tales whispered in corporate boardrooms. His success had become their ultimate punishment, his strength their lasting shame. The betrayed husband was long dead. In his place stood a titan of industry, a man whose name inspired respect and fear throughout the business world. He'd built his empire on the foundations of their betrayal, each success another brick in the wall between past and present. And as Denver slept below, Ethan Hayes allowed himself a moment of reflection. 20 years of unforgiving strength had taught him the true meaning of power. Not the ability to destroy, but the strength to build something so magnificent that destruction became unnecessary. His revenge was complete, not because they suffered, but because their suffering had become irrelevant to his success. He had transcended revenge itself, becoming something they could never touch, never understand, never defeat. The night deepened, and Ethan returned to his work. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to demonstrate his strength. The past was sealed away, its lessons learned, its wounds transformed into armor. He was Ethan Hayes, and his story had become legend. Not a tale of betrayal and revenge, but a testament to the power of unforgiving strength and unwavering determination. The man who emerged from betrayal's ashes had built an empire, and in doing so, had achieved the ultimate victory. He'd made his betrayer's existence meaningless in the grand story of his success. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.